It's kind of like watching two puppies fall in love.
Yeah, I'm so unprepared for everything today, as you guys can tell.
Hello. That's my test.
Rewind.
Hey there, we're the Reading Queens, and we're here to blab about our favorite books, why we love them, and the book boyfriends we wish were real. Welcome, I'm Valia.
I'm Kay.
I'm Abby.
I'm Joanna.
And yeah, we're here to talk about all the book things, and this is also our trope discussion episode, which is always super, super fun. And we really we're ready to dive into this show, but first, how is everybody doing today?
Good. I actually watched a show on Netflix, you guys. Valia knows that I just don't do that. Except for Shadow and Bone. Of course I watched that. But
Of course.
that's a given. But actually, over the weekend, I watched a movie. It was Enola Holmes. You guys know that one?
Oh, I've seen that.
So cute. Okay.
It really was.
There's like this little romance in it, and it was the most innocent, precious romance I've ever seen. It was so cute. And I was like, oh, it just reminded me why I love young adult books so much, because that first love, the innocence, which, okay, this was pretty, it's like a family show, so it's pretty extra innocent, you know.
Yes.
Young adult books tend to be not quite so innocent, but it was really cute, and it just made me like, I was like, oh, this is why I love young adults so much. That first love, you know?
Yeah.
It's kind of like watching two puppies fall in love.
Yeah.
It's just like, aw.
It was so cute.
It was cute. That's one of my favorite things. I made my parents watch it too, because I was like, you guys have to see it. This is so cute. But I heard like that they are thinking of doing it like a whole series of movies. So if that becomes a thing, that would be
cool.
really fun. Yeah.
I'm on board for
I
that.
for
too.
sure thought it was a TV show with like seasons and everything. And so we were probably 3/4 of the way through the movie, and I was like, are we still on the first season? And my husband's like, this is a movie. And I was like, what? Excuse me, what? So I'm like, okay, hold on, I need to emotionally prepare myself for the fact that this is almost over. I was not ready for that. It was good though that I asked, because then by the time we got to the end, I was like, okay, that was good.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm prepared.
Yeah. I think they left it open for so much like fun stuff for them to do, you know? So it would be really cool if they did just like a series of movies with it.
Yeah.
I'm good with that.
It was cool. I have a son who's really into spy books. He loves spy books. And so it was really cool to see a spy movie for that age group. You know, the younger age group. So, and there was no kissing, which he approves of. So that's for him.
Speaking of spy books, has your son read Stuart Gibbs'
Oh,
Spy
he
School
just
series?
barely finished that one, and that's like, now he's writing a spy story because of that series, so that's fun.
It's so good.
It's so cute. I love it when he writes stuff.
That's adorable.
Yeah.
I had a pretty good week. I got my husband to watch Shadow and Bone, speaking of. And he doesn't read, so it was pretty funny trying to watch him follow along the story. He kept pausing. What's a Grisha? Why does she have this? Like, why didn't they just like, I don't know, blow their way around it? Why can't they go north?
That
Why
is
can't
my
they go
husband
south?
too. He was asking all these military questions, and I'm like, honey, I'm pretty sure Lee Bardugo has never been in the military, okay? Like, you just gotta suspend your disbelief a little bit here.
I mean, it is a magical world, okay? So shouldn't be that
Magical
hard.
military.
Yeah. I don't know about your husband. My husband did really like it, though, once he got past
So did
the
mine.
military questions.
Yeah, once he got past like that disbelief, he was like, okay, I'm into this. And he was the one who's like, hey, are you in the mood to watch some Shadow and Bone today? I'm like, yes, always. Like, this is awesome.
That's cool.
Okay, question. I'm probably the only one that hasn't read these books or seen this show. Should I read the books first?
I don't think you have
watch the show
to.
first?
Right.
But also, really the only book is the first book. So if you just read Shadow and Bone, just Shadow and Bone, then you'll have read everything almost. There is one little storyline that sort of happens in the Six of Crows books, but it's pretty much just the one book.
Yeah, the only
Okay.
benefit I would say about like reading the books, like reading the trilogy and the Six of Crows before watching it, is just like the excitement you have by seeing these characters.
That's
like
true.
you have like a because the Six of Crows isn't like the same, right? Because it's like a prequel. So even if you read the books, like it's not the same storyline for those characters at all, but you would know the characters. And so when you see them, you would be more excited. That's like the only thing I can think of like the benefit of reading the books before the show.
And I feel like a lot of times seeing the movie or seeing the show after you've read the book, you're like, oh, well, they did this different and they did this different. And it's like a disappointment because it's not what you wanted. But I felt like Shadow and Bone did such a good job of being true to the story. But the things that were different, they were so well done that it's like, oh, that's fine. That's cool. They did it different,
Right.
you know, instead of being disappointed. So I definitely think if you've read the books first, you're gonna love it, but I don't think you have to either. I think it's fine to just jump in.
But if you do read the first one, you have to listen to the soundtrack as you read.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Nice.
Listen to the soundtrack. That's true. I wish we had more soundtracks for books like that, so you could get into it.
That's so funny. Are we just going to talk about Shadow and Bone for the next 6 months?
I know it came out forever ago now, but it's still too exciting.
I know, we're just gonna keep going. It's fine, don't mind us. No, we did a whole like mini episode series on the podcast all about Shadow and Bone because we had to geek out about it. And of course, right? And so I just love that we did that, first of all, because it was just like geeking out and like people geeking out with us. But wait, where was I going with this?
I don't know. So go listen to those if you want to know more about Shadow and Bone.
There was something I was supposed to say along those lines, but my brain just completely shut down as I was talking. So moving on.
Nice.
Okay, well, this is our trope episode, so I think we should just dive in because we have 4 books to discuss, and I am excited because this is kind of one of those tropes that we don't see very often, just really advertised, I guess you could say, just in general. But yeah, for those of you who don't know, our trope episodes, basically, we each picked a book that we read this week, and we're going to talk about the books and how it fits into a specific trope. And in this case, the trope is characters with disabilities. So, Kay,
yeah,
Abby's very excited.
I am.
Yes. Kay is going to start us off with her book. And so, yeah, just take it away.
All right. I read A Curse So Dark and Lonely by Bridget Kemmerer. And for those who don't know, the main character has cerebral palsy. And that disability in particular is really different in a lot of different people. You know, it presents differently. So some people, the way that it presents in them could be totally different. So in A Curse So Dark and Lonely, the main character, oh my gosh, I can't think of her name because I'm like on the spot now. What's her name? Oh. Harper. I know it. See you guys. Okay. Anyway, Harper has, she just kind of walks with a limp, and her leg is not as strong on the one side as it is on the other side. So there's this one scene, and we're introduced to Harper, and she kind of talks about cerebral palsy, but it's just kind of something that is a part of her life, but that's not what the whole book is about by any means. She's just doing her thing, has all this other stuff happening, and there's this part later on. Okay, so it's a portal fantasy. So it starts out, I'm like, how do I explain this without explaining all of this? Okay, so it's a Beauty and the Beast retelling. It starts where the Beast is in this fantasy world, and he turns into a beast at the end of the fall season, and then after that, the season starts over, and basically he has to relive this fall season over and over and over again until he falls in love with a girl, you know, and that will break the curse. So
does everyone else repeat this?
It is only the castle and the castle grounds, and the beast comes at the end of the season. He's like human the whole season, and at the end he turns into the beast, and the beast has killed everybody except for his one commander is still alive. So it's just the prince and his one commander. So they go and kidnap girls from our world. Yay! So
Yay.
those are the girls that they try and get him to fall in love with. So Harper is from our world. She's from Washington, D.C. And they go kidnap her, and she's very feisty. She is not about being kidnapped. She like full on gets a, what's it called? I can't think of what it's called.
A stabby thing? You're kind of making a stabby motion.
This thing, the crook
Knife.
thing. I can't think of what it's called.
What?
It's just because I'm on the spot. I swear I'm better at thinking of the names of things. I can't think of
And
it.
I've read this book
It's
and
like
I can't think of what
bar,
you're talking
an
about.
iron bar that has like a...
Like a crowbar?
Yes, thank you.
Ah, ding, ding, ding.
I write for a living, so I'm very good at thinking of what things are called, right? Just kidding. Anyway, so she full on gets a crowbar and like tries to smash the head of the guy who's kidnapping her. Anyway, it's awesome. So they take her to the castle and she tries to run away, and they're like, oh no, you were injured. And she's like, no. And they're like, yeah, you have a limp. And she's like, no, I wasn't injured. And I really liked that, how she took control of that situation, and she knew what they assumed, but she also still just like stood her ground and explained it in the way that she wanted to explain it, and in her own time, like when she was ready. And, and then she kind of explained, it's a thing I've had since I was born, blah, blah. And I don't know, I just really liked that, how she explained it, that she wasn't just like, but they were saying, oh, you're injured, and she wasn't immediately, she didn't just rush to explain. She was like, no, I'm not. And they're like, yeah, you're injured. And she made them like, she kind of forced it out of them to say what they were really saying, and then she like gave herself that entrance to explain. So it was cool. I loved the book series. The first book is awesome. The first book is the only one that is actually a fairy tale retelling. It's a Beauty and the Beast. And then the other books are just kind of like a continuation of the story. So I love Beauty and the Beast retellings. They're like always my favorite. So I loved that book. But it was cool. I thought that the disability had been given a lot of respect, but it also like affected her life, and it was a real thing that she had to deal with. And I thought it was done very well.
Awesome.
Sounds good.
I like how they enfolded that into a fairy tale retelling, because usually they're always so perfect in fairy tales, and there's anything wrong or difficult beyond, they got kidnapped or they're like stuck
or
in
the villain is trying to hurt them or something.
Yeah. So just to see like, oh, this is a real life thing, and it's really folded into a fairy tale, which is so sparkly and stuff.
That's
cool.
True.
Funny enough, I almost read a fairy tale retelling for this.
Oh.
And it's the same thing where the girl, I think she's actually blind, but I decided to read it for the fairy tale retelling
nice.
that we'll do in the future, because it just fit more with it. But you're absolutely right. Like, you don't ever see like the heroine usually is like this perfect,
sparkly, perfectly beautiful.
Yeah.
Exactly. So it is really like refreshing to see like the realness of the person. I don't know if that makes sense.
Well, it's so true. Even one of the queens, Hanna, Sandvig, her book, The Wolf Gate, the main character wears glasses, which, I mean, that's such a simple thing, but it's crazy how rare that is, even that in fantasy books, people just, the princess never has glasses. So it's cool that in her story, she had glasses.
Yeah. I do remember how excited we all were to see glasses on the cover.
It was.
When she did the covers for that. We're like, oh, she has glasses? What?
Yeah.
People outside of our, outside of the readers or whatever group, they'll be like, what? Okay, she has glasses. Cool. Like, it's a cover with a girl with glasses. We're like, no, you don't understand.
Yeah.
There's never glasses.
Yeah, this is a big deal, okay? But yeah, that's really cool. I did love the way that she handled that it wasn't like, obviously it was a big deal for her as the main character, because it touched her life in every way, because it's like, it's something that she just carries with her, but it wasn't like, I don't know, it wasn't made into a big deal, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it wasn't a book about the disability by any means. It was a fantasy story, and she just happened to have a disability. And I thought that was, I mean, yeah, that I feel like that's the way it should be. It was really cool the way it was done.
Yes. Yeah. That's cool. Well, Abby, do you want to talk about your book now?
Yes. So mine is a contemporary. It's a little bit more of an about book, but not actually quite an about book.
Okay.
But it's called Song for a Whale by Lynn Kelly. And the main character, Iris, is deaf. So I really wanted to read this. It's been on my TBR for forever because my nephew has aphasia. And so he right now primarily communicates through sign language. And so, and I've been like trying to watch YouTube videos and learn like cookie, symbol for cookie, and eat and more, and I love you and stuff like that to talk to him. Yeah. 'Cause he's really little. He's only like 2 or 3. And so, yeah, I was just super interested in this one. And Iris is unique, not just because she's deaf, but her grandparents were deaf. So she really grew up in this deaf culture. And so it was super interesting to read all the little things that deaf people do as part of their culture that like people who aren't deaf don't really pick up on. Or something like, oh gosh, what are they called? Where you have little special phrases, like idioms. They're like metaphors usually. Yeah, like idioms. Idioms don't really translate so well into sign language. And so just seeing how they like deaf people might have their own idioms or whatever. That was, I don't know, that was super
Is this
cool
a fantasy book or is it just a...
It's contemporary.
Okay, cool. I didn't know that. That's cool.
Yeah. And so the story starts off with Iris's grandpa who had recently died, and her grandma who she's close with is in mourning. She's a super unique character because she likes to fix old radios. And so she's super into like tinkering with stuff and like fixing things and trying to, you know, it's a challenge for her, and she likes puzzling things. And she can tell that when they're fixed or not because she can hear them, but she'll put her hand over the speakers and feel the vibrations. And so that's something she really resonates with, is like music and those vibrations and feeling the pulse of things. And I don't know, I just thought that was super cool.
Yeah, that is really cool.
But the story kind of kicks off when she's in school and she hears about Blue 55, which is the name of a whale, which is actually kind of based on a true story, which is fun. The author kind of adapted this into like a book, like a fiction story. And this whale sings at a different vibration or a different hertz level than the rest of the whales in the ocean. So in a way, he kind of like is isolated in his own communicatory space as well.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So you can kind of see where
that's so cool.
going.
Yeah.
Yeah. So she feels this kinship and she makes this like song for him because she wants to reach out and like know that you're not alone in the ocean, like someone can hear you. And so it's about like how she makes this song and she wants to play it for him and goes on a little adventure to play this song for the whale. It's really cute. It's really layered, really beautiful, and just really well written. So I highly recommend it. And the cover's gorgeous. So if you just buy books for the cover love, like you want to buy this book for the cover love.
That's so cool. Awesome. I think it's so cool to be able to read books, like learning about the deaf community and that kind of thing, because it is such a rich and a rich community that has so like its own culture. But I don't know. I think it's cool too when authors tackle things that they don't necessarily have experience with, and you have to write it differently, obviously, when you don't have experience with it because you don't know it as well. But I just appreciate when we get more representation, and obviously if you're writing a disability, you can still consult with people and get like help, even if you didn't ever experience it in your life, you know. But it's just even more special when you do get to read something written by somebody who's obviously dealt with that before or been a part of that community or whatever, because then it's just like, you know that it's really accurate, right?
Yeah, you could totally tell she had some sort of experience and just all the layers. And I don't know, it just made me hopeful for my own nephew that even if he never is able to speak, like that he would still be able to have a community and a culture and like a language of his own. And so that just relating it back to real life, like, it just made me super excited for him.
Yeah.
That's cool.
I like that. Joanna, is your book about a deaf person too?
Yes, it is.
Oh, okay.
Oh, no way. I didn't know that.
I was just like looking at the title. I'm like, wait a minute.
So I read Soundless by Rochelle Mead. I bought this book like years and years ago because the author, Rochelle Mead, she's the one that wrote the Vampire Academy and the Bloodlines books, and I love those books. So this is a standalone. I reread it this week, which was so fun. But it's set in a fictional village It's pretty Asian. They have like they're very proper, and they have the pretty art and calligraphy and things like that. And so it's this village that's set on top of a really, really tall mountain. And 3 of the 4 sides are just like cliffs that go straight up. And the other side, where all of the like ancestors migrated up to this village, over the years there was avalanches and rock slides, so they are like stuck up here at the top of this mountain.
Oh, that's super cool world building.
Yeah, and so this whole village, they're just like trapped up here. They have no way to grow food or have livestock or anything, because just nothing grows up there. And so the way that they survive is there's a mine with precious metals that they mine for, and they send the metals down the mountain on a zip line, and the people at the bottom of the mountain send up food and supplies and things. So this is how this village survives. So generations ago, the people started losing their hearing until all of them were deaf. So this entire village is deaf, which is kind of interesting, because it's like not a disability, because all of them have it. They all sign. Like the dialogue is really interesting because it's all in italics, because it's just the people signing to each other. And so the main character, her name is Faye. There's really just a couple of jobs that people can do in this village, and it's either being a miner for the metals, or she's an artist. She's a master artist, and it's her job every day to paint the news, like how much metal they got, like
that's
what's
awesome.
going on in the village. And she's like,
so do they have a written language?
They do. And so she paints it, and her sister is also an artist, and she like does calligraphy. And so it's like this whole group of artists who that's their job, is they go out and observe the village, and then that's their job, is to just like paint and write the news, and then they post it up in the village center. And what was kind of interesting about it too is the very beginning of it, she's kind of explaining her job a little bit, and she says, they say a long time ago there was like either the news was word of mouth, or there was a village crier or a village shouter. And she's like, I don't know what that means, but because she can't, like, she has no like reference for it. So their village isn't doing very well. The people at the bottom are sending less and less food. And a couple of months before the story begins, some of the villagers are starting to lose their sight. Which, I mean, they're already living in silence, and now a lot of them are living in darkness, and so there's a lot of beggars that just kind of sit in the village square and can't do anything because they have no sight, they have no sound. And so it's just kind of like a dire situation, like trying to figure out what to do. So one morning, the main character, Faye, she wakes up to these like weird sensations that she can't figure out what's going on. And she starts paying attention to what's going on, and things that, like these sensations she's noticing, correlate with like tapping or like people making sounds, or so like she gets her hearing back. And what I kind of loved about it too is that it's almost like a superpower for her, whereas we just kind of take it for granted. But as she was showing someone that she could do it, she was having him stand behind her and clap his hands, and she would tell him how many times he did that. And he thought that she was like reading his mind or something, because he couldn't comprehend how she was doing this.
Yeah.
So anyway, it's got this really sweet, cute romance in it, and it's about her and this other guy that go down the mountain to figure out how to save their village. And the only reason why she feels like she can go is because she can actually hear the rocks if there's another rock slide, which is the other reason they've been trapped up there, is because no one could hear if there was gonna be a rock slide to like get out of danger. So it's still dangerous, but anyway, it's very.
That was gonna be my question.
So, read that.
Do they ever explain how they all go deaf? Do they know?
They don't know.
Oh, okay, that's like a.
But that would be a spoiler.
Okay.
No, that was gonna be my I was gonna be like, wait, why don't they just use the zip line to get down the mountain?
Yeah, and they should, but they explain that the zip line can only hold 30 kilos. And so it can only hold a certain amount of metal and only can... Yeah. So that's the reason why.
It makes sense. Okay.
You know what that reminds me of is that Apple TV show C.
I don't know that.
I haven't seen it. I've seen like previews for it, but I don't have Apple TV.
It's so good. It's like, okay, it's very bloody and gruesome, so probably not on the level of Soundless, like up the violence like by a lot.
Not like Enola Holmes either.
Yeah, definitely not puppies falling in love. But it's the guy who plays Aquaman and Drogo or whatever. And that
Jason
guy.
Momoa.
Yes. And so he's the main character, and the whole village is like, the whole world actually is blind. And it was so cool because they actually incorporated blind actors into the cast, and they took a lot of blind people on staff to help them advise. And so it was so cool seeing how this whole world culture things got built up around a whole community who doesn't have use of one of their senses. So it just kind of reminded me of that, how like the whole community, they can't hear. And so
because in this there's a lot of things that, like, even the names of sounds they had no use for, you know, like bang or singing, like, you know, just like all kinds of things. That anyway, it's a very good book.
I'm like just really curious to read it now, because, you know, in books we use description of sounds or the way we say certain words as identifiers, right? And like nervous or whatever, like you can hear that stuff in people's voices when you read, right? Because that they describe that. But for a book like that, you wouldn't have any of that.
Well, I mean, your body language does a lot too, and like a lot of times people who are deaf, they do over exaggerate their expressions for that very reason, you know, so that it is.
Yeah, but I can see that. But reading it would be a different experience. You know what I mean?
Okay, I see what you're saying. I feel like that's true. You can't have the trembling voice, but you can still have the trembling chin.
Right.
Know?
Yes, there is. So that it's just a different technique in describing those things that, like Joanna said, like we take for granted, you know, when we write, we use like she said, you know, breathlessly or whatever. I don't know. But that's not the same. That's not how you would write it if the whole community is deaf, you know? So that's like, I'm like super fascinated about this book.
She tackles it very well. And I think she must have done knows about it or did a lot of research. It was like very well thought out because,
Right. Which is the way to do it. Like, that's one of the things that we've all mentioned is like, you have to, if you're going to write about it, you have to know about it. Like, you can't I'm just going to make this character deaf just because I need diversity in my book, you know, like, no, you have to take this because it doesn't matter that they have, you know, a disability or some kind of anything, like they're still people and they still should get the same respect that the rest of your characters do and not just be used as, you know, a way to be diverse or whatever, if that makes sense. But I feel like sometimes I have problems with, you know, shows and movies and stuff when that happens, when they use just like a character with a specific quirk just to push that they're, you know, cool with the times instead of being like, no, but like this character needs the respect that the rest of them got, you know? So it's really like, it's really nice to read books that you can see the author has done the work, like to make sure that these characters are just as respected as anybody else, because they are just as respected, you know. So I'm gonna read that now.
Yeah, me too.
It's not very long. Like a lot of her books are huge, but it's not very long.
And it is a standalone.
It's a standalone, yeah.
That's interesting. I'm like now curious to see if I have it, because I think I like own basically all of her books. But I haven't read all of them. So I'm like, I'm going to have to check my stuff to see if I actually have it.
I'll show you the cover after.
That would be funny.
It's just on my chair back there.
Okay, so I guess I'll talk about my book. Mine is also not fantasy and it's not young adult. I went with like a completely different genre for this, but it is the Kiss Quotient by Helen Hogan. Can't say that correctly, so I'm sorry. But I am not 100% sure, and I probably should have looked this up before I say anything. But I think that the author suffers from the same Asperger's. I think maybe possibly if I'm wrong, I am so sorry, but basically that's like the disability that the main character lives with. Stella, she lives in a math world. Like she just predicts algorithms, and that's her job, is like to predict algorithms for customer purchases. And she's like rich because of it. She's really, well off and everything. And the one thing that, Asperger's prevents her from doing, basically, or whatever, like she just doesn't know how to be. I'm trying to think, how do I say this? Like to be like emotional, but also like personal touch is really like a no-no, right? So like if she thinks about kissing, like I think, hold on, I think the little back of the book talks about it. Yes, the French kissing reminds her of a shark getting its teeth clawed by a pilot fish. So it's like no, like she's like, she's not about to be kissing people, right? So what she does is, like, her conclusion is that she needs a lot of practice, right? So because like she's an analytical, logical person, right? So how do you get better at something? You practice. So she actually hires an escort, Michael, to be her tutor.
Her practice buddy.
Yes.
For kissing.
In the kissing and whatever. So that's like the premise of the book. And I found it so, maybe because I just haven't read a lot of books like this, but it was really refreshing and it was really lighthearted. And I think that's the part that I really loved about it, is the lightheartedness, because when you think about like disabilities or people living with certain things, like you think of it as a disability, basically, you know what I mean? Like something that brings you down, that you have to work through. And yeah, she had a lot of like growing and learning to do, and in this book, because of certain things that happen, and just the relationship that she had with this man, but also with other people around her as she practiced with him, if that makes sense. So it was just really interesting to see how this like serious subject in this life that can be so affected by it was just like presented as normal, first of all, which is always great, but also just had like lightheartedness to it. And I think the author just like really handled that in a way that was very approachable to people who don't have it, and to like understand how somebody can be affected by this. Is it a disease? Would that qualify as a disease? And like how do you, I don't know the qualifications for that.
It's like a mental condition, like a.
Okay.
Because it's autism.
I think
yes,
it is interesting. I feel like the stigma is obviously not the way it used to be. The stigma was there for so long for any kind of disability, and I feel like we're finally peeling away the layers and getting rid of that a lot. But like you were saying, I just feel like, especially in media, in books and movies and stuff, that anytime there was a disability, it had to be like, that's what the whole movie was about. Yes. And it was always just this dark and sad thing. And
heavy.
That's
super
not
heavy.
Yeah. And I mean, it is so true that it's nice that it can just be seen as a normal thing, that it's like, these are regular people who just have
challenge.
Who are just living
Yeah.
a different way. Like, we all deal with our own things in life. This just happens to be what they're dealing with. And I love that. I love that as we're peeling away the layers of the stigma, that it is becoming, we get to see more of these people be real people.
Yes.
And just, we get to see them be humans instead of, a disability.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
It's good.
Yeah.
It's great. And I still think we have room for improvement in media, but we're getting better, so that's good.
Well, and I feel like autism especially has come a long way as far as that goes too. My son is like borderline on the spectrum, and whenever I mention that to someone, it kind of helps them understand him a little bit better, which helps me because there are some challenges there that I feel like people are more understanding
when they have a frame of reference.
Yes.
Yeah.
Even though he's not like he's borderline, he's got
Right.
I think it's cool too. And fantasy books, you know, how do I say this? We think, as someone who, you know, like maybe me, I don't have, you know, I'm not deaf, right? So to me, it might seem restricting to have to write a character who is deaf. But then, you know, if you think about it, it's like, but, you know, a lot of times we have a magic system that's restricting in some way. Or, you know, there will be like your economic status is really restricting in most fantasy novels or other books. I'm like, we have restrictions all the time with all kinds of things. Like, why can't we just add characters who are just regular people who have, anyway.
Yeah, it is a good point. My personal thing, though, is like, I would need to do so much research to write anybody with anything specific. You know what I mean? Because like when it comes to a magic system, that's a little more like I can make up the restrictions and I can make up the way people respond to them and whatever. But with something so real as people living with these, you know, disabilities or whatever, like I would personally feel just like I have to know absolutely everything about it.
I do think it is important to be, you know, to deal with it in a respectful way. I think that's important. But
I think we can do that more.
We have a lot more opportunities to be able to find ways to do it.
Yes.
You know, I think finding people who would be able to help read and like fact checked you and that kind of thing.
Yes.
I think that's easier now than it used to
be.
So that's good.
I agree with that. I think it should be done, definitely should be done more. I think people do shy away from having that in their books, but I think like it's important to not shy away from that because
maybe that's why. Because of what you said. Because
they don't want to do it wrong.
Yeah.
Or be disrespectful.
Yes. Which is great. A great reason, yes. But I think like Kay said, because the mentality of the whole thing has changed so much, even in the last couple of years, and because of the opportunities we have to talk to people and have, you know, be more upfront about it, I think it would be amazing to see more of those representations in books, you know, when done correctly, obviously.
Have you read Robin Hobb's Assassin's Apprentice series?
No, it's on my list, though.
It's so good. Okay, what I love about this is there's a magic system, obviously, and the main character has a magical disability. So it's really cool seeing how the disability springs up from the magic system that's in place, and especially that it's not healed by magic throughout the entire series. It definitely affects him. It's part of his life.
That's the big thing about disabilities, right? Having them get healed by magic.
Yep.
Yeah. So Valia, you have to read it. It's so good. It's so good. I like binged all 12 books of them.
That is the reason why I haven't read them.
Just because the series is so long.
Just start with the original trilogy.
Okay.
Just start with there.
Okay.
And then once you fall in love and you can't help but binge the rest, like you have permission to do that.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome.
So funny.
I have permission now. We're good. So
that is awesome. Say the title one more time.
The Assassin's Apprentice.
The Assassin's Apprentice.
Which doesn't that sound like a book I would read anyway, right?
Exactly.
Right?
It
It's
totally
good.
does.
Yeah.
It's an epic fantasy, and it's so great. It's so great.
So I did want to talk about how I guess not the difference, just physical and mental disabilities. I think it's great when both of those are represented in books. I think a lot of times I can think of like a lot of fantasy series where the characters definitely have PTSD and, you know, and actually the author has probably done a little bit of research to help write those to be accurate, you know.
Right.
And I feel like we're getting more kinds of books with like depression and stuff and other mental health problems, but I just think it's great when those kinds of things are represented in books as well. I feel like I had something else to say about that, but looking at my notes, that was it. So that's the end of that, apparently.
Have you read Claire Legrand's Some Kind of Happiness?
No.
It's not fantasy, it's contemporary and it's middle grade, but I thought it dealt with depression, like childhood depression really well.
That's cool.
Just speaking of like mental stuff.
Yeah.
But I thought that was probably one of my favorite books that had a character dealing with depression. And
that's cool. I'll have to write one of those someday. Just kidding. I mean, I might. I'm saying just kidding because I actually have a series planned out the next. Anyway, I don't want to say too much because it's a future project, but I do have one planned out that is like really centered around mental illness. So it's a good one.
Interesting.
Get ready, guys.
I'm ready.
Someday. It's coming.
I have my buy button all ready to go.
Yes.
Oh, nice.
There you go. So Abby is really good about obviously having recommendations, but we do have some other ones. So do you want to talk about the fantasy book you wanted to recommend, Abby?
Yeah. I wanted to recommend Dragon School by Sarah K.L. Wilson. So this is an episodic series. There's something like 20 episodes. So if you really want to binge read, like this is the perfect binge reading series to do. But it's about...
They're short too.
Yeah, they're super short. Well, not super short, but they're totally bingeable. Let's put it that way. Short and bingeable. But the main character's name is Amel Leafbrot. She is a commoner with a disability, obviously. She has a crushed leg and hip from childhood. So she walks with a limp. She has a cane and all that. And if you love dragons, this is a perfect series for you because she bonds with Raoclan, I think is how you pronounce the dragon's name. And they have the mental telepathy thing where you can talk to your dragon in their mind.
Nice.
It's super special and, you love it. And it's basically about her trying to get into dragon school with this disability and bonding with her dragon. And as she gets swept up into this bigger political mess and, as Fantic episies, epic fantasy adventures go.
That didn't even sound wrong to me at first. I was like, wait.
You're like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, so the bigger plot starts to go as school goes on, and yeah, so it's a really great story where disability is just a part of the character's life. It's not an about book, and she still gets to go on the epic adventure, and you kind of get hints of a future romance, because that's something else we don't really see much is characters and people with disabilities, and they're portrayed as being in romance, like they have a romantic life, which is kind of why I want to read the Kiss Quotient. I cannot speak today, guys. I'm like slurring everything. Just because she's like involved in kissing and that's fun and lighthearted. And
yeah, that's part of why I love the book too, is because it was just like the first time I really read a book where it wasn't an about book, where it was just her life. That's and fun. It was a fun romance. And yeah, so definitely read it and then we can talk about it.
Okay, so
perfect.
I wanted to add about the Dragon School series. I actually have never read this, but this gets recommended all the time. So it's another recommendation. Apparently, it's amazing. So you should definitely read it if you haven't yet. Including me, okay?
Talking to yourself here.
Exactly. I have another book to recommend also. This is by Joanna, who's in this podcast episode today. In Her Dreams by Joanna Reeder. That series deals a lot with depression and just delves a lot into that. And it's really cool. It's very well done, obviously. So that's it. And also... the depression thing is not what the book is about. It's about it's just something going on. It's the girl, she has dreams where she like basically is in the head of somebody who has lived in the past. So it's like a real person who has lived, and she's like, while she's dreaming, she like is living their life. It's really cool.
Yes. Now Joanna had a book to recommend.
I'm going to recommend Abby's book. Who's in this podcast? When Planets Fall.
Oh, that's funny.
I'm only a couple of chapters into this, but I already love it. But it's sci-fi on a different planet, and the main character has an amputated leg, and has to navigate that. And he finds a spaceship. And I love the thing, there's 3 different clans, and they all have different colored blood depending on their species. And there's like this big war going on between all 3 of them. So, and is this series complete now, Abby?
It is.
Yeah.
So,
is it convincing?
yay!
Yeah, exactly.
You can binge it, guys.
That's awesome.
It is a pretty good book. I've read it, so.
Oh, you're so cool.
Not
You brush
that one. I
the
don't
dust
need
off
to
your
read.
I know.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to recommend The Lilac Plague by Kirsten J. Dawson. We did talk about this book before on here, but I don't think we like really mentioned the fact that the main character has a stutter. And that's like a big part of, like the book, obviously. But it's just really well written. And that series is also complete. So you guys can 100% binge it.
And it's cool the way that she does the stutter, because it's clear that it's written by somebody who really understands it, as opposed to somebody who's just like assuming that's what a stutter is like, because it's not necessarily what is always portrayed, so it's cool. That's one where it's like you'll get to learn about a stutter a little bit, so
and it's not
that's
about
really cool.
a stutter. It's an epic
Right.
fantasy.
Yeah,
Yes,
again.
once again, yeah.
Totally about a whole different thing. It has a very cool court intrigue and romance. Yes.
It's great. I love like all these recommendations. I'm excited to read a bunch of this stuff, especially the stuff Abby recommended. My list is like, okay, cool.
I got your number for book
Yes,
recs.
exactly. So that was really fun. I really like that. I'm glad we did this trope, like I feel like we've done a lot of the more
common ones.
Yes, exactly. So it's really fun that we're kind of diving into the smaller gritty, whatever, how you say that, tropes.
Niche.
Yes, there you go. Perfect. But yeah, if you ever want to pick up one of the books we're discussing, we have a link to a bookshop page for your convenience. I'll leave the link into the shop and to our website in the show notes and in the description. If you're like on YouTube or something, it's all linked so you guys can access it easily. Next week, Hanna, Rose, and Stacy will be here, so I'm looking forward to that. But we'll miss these ladies. They did such a great job. Round of applause. But before we go,
Oh yes,
I know,
so good.
It was amazing. Okay, I love all your notes that you brought. Let's talk about what we're reading this week. So, Kay, what are you reading this week?
Oh, I'm reading Caraval, which I was supposed to read forever ago, but I'm finally reading it this time.
We need to
So
finish that series.
Yes.
I know
I
I'm
read the first
excited
one.
about it.
Nice. Abby?
That's by Stephanie Garber.
There you go.
Sorry,
Good
I
job.
forgot to say that.
Well, I'm actually reading 3 books simultaneously at the moment, so I'll give you all 3.
Good job.
So, Charlie Thorne and the Last Equation by Stuart Gibbs, the same guy who wrote
nice.
Spy School. So,
Nice.
what I love about this one is it's a genius 12-year-old girl named Charlie, and half of the book takes place in Israel, which I actually got to visit a lot of the sites that is mentioned in the book, so
wow.
I totally could visualize it, and like I love
So
it. It's
cool.
like,
That's cool.
it's like a middle grade thriller. It was fun. And then I'm reading Dustborn by Erin Bowman, which is
Okay.
also another like cover love that you need to buy just for the cover alone.
Nice.
And then I'm reading The Last Watch by J.S. Dews. And this came out recently and is a space opera. So I love space and I love operas. So there you go.
Nice.
Joanna?
I'm kind of in the middle of a bunch of books, but I want to finish Abby's.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, you do. You got to finish the series
Yes.
because it's out.
And I'm actually reading A Red Wolf by Rachel Vincent. I'm trying to think if this book is out yet. I got an arc of it. So it's like I think it's a loose Red Riding Hood retelling, if I remember correctly. But the cover is really, really cool. So I was like, ooh, this is just perfect. But I don't know if it's out yet. I'm going to have to check. I feel like it comes out maybe in July or August. But I'll double check on that.
What is the name of it?
Red Wolf by Rachel Vincent. So I'll check to see. But my bad. that I don't know this off the top of my head. Just like everything else today. I'm like, what are words?
July 20th is when it comes out.
There you go. Perfect. Thank you so much. Yes, so soon. But yeah, I'm reading that. So we'll see how that goes, because I'm in the mood for fairy tale retellings. I have no idea why, but I am.
Sometimes you just got the itch. Gotta scratch it.
All right. Well, thank you for listening to The Reading Queens. Before you go, please take a moment to leave us a review and follow us on your favorite podcast platform. And then stay tuned for next week. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.